Alright. Hello everyone and welcome to the video. I'm not quite used to doing these style of videos, so we're going to see how this goes. But today we are talking about something kind of cool in my opinion. Some of you out there might find it pretty fascinating and pretty cool as well. Today we are talking about, well, not talking about the entirety of the SCP universe, but we're talking about one simple part of it for the time being. Not even a simple part. We're just talking about one tiny part over the time being, and that is some of the SCP-001 proposals, which there are 41 of currently. That's a lot, like 5 pages of a notebook worth of talking points, notes, and other things worth for one proposal. So today we're talking about Jonathan Ball's proposal, which is called Sheaf of Papers. This item number is SCP-001, and its object class is Keter, which pretty much just means it's really hard to contain consistently. At least that's what I wrote down in my notes. What's cool about this one is it's not even something that you would normally think of in the same vein as being like something kind of scary or something that would be like world-ending or terrifying, because pretty much all it is just if you just took a sheet of papers, stapled it up here in the top left corner, and the front of it just says, what does it say? Confidential report on special items, classified. And every time you open it, every time you flip it open, a new SCP comes to light. Now that's just cool to me. That's just cool because it's not the same type of thing that you would normally think of in this vein of horror or in this vein of storytelling. It's not the same type of thing that I would ever think of, and it was honestly very interesting to look at and read. I read this 2 or 3 times, and each time I was just super impressed by like how it fits. Like, I don't know how to best to explain it, but let's take a look at the description of the item that is given real quick, which is this. If you would like to read it rather than listening to me read it, you can. But SCP-001 is a simple sheaf of papers stapled together in the top left corner. The top sheet is a covering sheet reading simply, "Confidential report on special items, classified." The number of subsequent papers stapled to this covering sheet is indeterminate and have ranged from 3 to 30. The report is unsigned and its origin is unknown. That's just cool to me. That at any point in time, this paper, these papers came into existence, came into being, and now it is just a gateway or like a early warning system possibly that's mentioned later for other items that come into existence and come into being for this. Also, the music is going to be weird in the background. I apologize for that because I've never really done this before. So I just want to go ahead and say that that's going to be a little different than normal. But something that's really cool about this, in my opinion, is just its origin is unknown. And the world that SCP is set in, it's very similar to ours. So we understand, or I understand, that we have so much technology in our day and age, yet we still have no way to understand where this came from. And that is very interesting. That is very cool to me. That's very cool to me. So, all right. In my notes, I just have proceed on to special containment procedures. So, I've talked a little bit. So let's get into this. So this is the special containment procedures, which is also pretty cool because I love that every single SCP has this. It's just like the ways to contain it. And this is a very long process or description of containments. So this starts off by saying, to date, no adequate containment procedure has been developed to deal with the possible threat posed by SCP-001. This is due, in part, to the controversial nature of the item and debates concerning the necessity of its containment. This controversy is reflected in the item's changing object class and the procedures utilized in its containment. The current administration, despite charges of paranoia, has classed the object Keter, while requesting permission for a higher object class to be created and applied uniquely to this item, considering it to be the most dangerous of all known or possible items. The reason for this classification and changing attitudes towards SCP-001 are dealt with in the description and notes. That's just awesome to me. I'll leave that up for another couple seconds. But that's just so cool to me that these papers are considered so dangerous or so risky that the administration wants to put it in a class of its own. That's just super cool to me because Keter class is already, as far as I'm aware, the highest class out there. I may be wrong. I'll fix that in a later video if I am wrong about that. But from what I saw, the first at least 2 or 3 of these proposals are Keter class, which I assume would be the highest class, given the fact that they want to make a new one. But it keeps changing. Every administration, it seems, keeps changing what this is classed as, because each one views it as a different threat. The current administration sees it as something that is detrimental to the world. It views it as something that is a threat, a harm, which is wild to think about because I'm reading a notebook right now. I'm reading things out of a notebook right now. Now just imagine that this notebook, every time I opened it, could cause a new object or item or being to be birthed into our world or slip into our world from another reality or dimension, or however SCPs truly come to exist here. It's just a really cool thought, and it may not be as cool to you guys, but it's extremely cool to me because I love this type of stuff. I really do. I love like some of the stuff that I know that the SCP stuff will get into later because I've seen like videos on talking about some things and little short videos or short movies, showing stuff. It all seems super cool. The games are all cool as well. But it's just so awesome. I don't know how to stress that enough to like the point that I want to, but that is just this is awesome stuff. Very awesome stuff. Also, just for them to want, they have charges of paranoia. The current administration does. That's funny to me. I would also be severely paranoid if there was a risk of a freaking sheaf of papers to cause world-ending events. That's wild. Like, how is no one worried about that other than the administration? I don't know. It's funny. I love that they want a higher object class to be created just for this one singular item. I love that as well. That's fantastic. Okay, let's keep going. Though this is still containment procedures. At present, SCP-001 is located in a code-locked briefcase made of a high-tensile reinforced polymer. The room and the briefcase are monitored at all times by security cameras. The briefcase cannot be opened without unanimous special clearance from all current O5 officers. The briefcase itself is stored in a small, fully lit, single-room off-site building erected and redacted. Class D personnel are posted to guard the building, but may not enter without the aforementioned agreement from the O5 officers, under threat of immediate termination. Death. This off-site building exists for the sole purpose of housing SCP-001 and is wired for detonation in an emergency. Fantastic. So we don't know where this building is located at. It's redacted. But that is still awesome. So a high tensile reinforced polymer briefcase that has a code log on it. You can't forget the code log. That is fantastic to me. That is the lengths they have gone to try and secure this. Because it shouldn't be that hard to secure. It's papers. It's papers. It can't do anything. But the whole reason it's classed as a keter, or however that should be pronounced, I'm pronouncing it keter. I'm going to continue to do that as well. But it's because the human threat, the fascination that humans have with this, wanting to open it, wanting to look through it, wanting to see what it has to offer and what it will bring into existence. That is what, in my opinion, I think it brings it to a keter class, because we as people do dumb things. We see a red button, we want to push it, even if it says "do not push," like nuclear warhead or something will be shot out into the atmosphere. We still want to push it. That's very much our brains are just wired to, hey, red button, I want to push that. Like, that's how we work. There's a whole game based around that premise, if I'm not mistaken. I love that they have the Class D personnel, which are like, I think just prisoners and inmates and stuff that they have taken, and they use them for experiments. They use them to deal with SCPs and use them to look at behavior patterns and stuff. I love that they're there to guard the building, because in a lot of the stories, a lot of the games that I've seen, it's the Class Ds that cause the most chaos, and I believe that's why the building it's housed in is wired for detonation, so that if something happens or things go wrong, the mash of a button, everything goes poof, and it's never got to be worried about again, unless, because it's not actually mentioned anywhere, whether or not they tested the durability of this thing. What if when they detonate it, nothing happens? It's still there, locked safely away within its briefcase. Or even if the briefcase is gone, what if it's still just sitting within the rubble, perfectly fine, waiting for someone to come around and look at it once more? Just saying. Continuing with the containment procedures. It is the opinion of the current administration that SCP-001 represents the greatest threat to national and global security known to exist. Nevertheless, due to special circumstances regarding its mode of function, further research on the item is disallowed, despite its promotion in the past, when SCP-001 was contained in minimum security conditions. So, that is what I was speaking of a second ago with it, or a minute ago, I guess, it was a little longer, about how it has seemed to change over the years, over the different administrations, over the different faculties that have had it for research and for containment and all. Because at one point it was contained within minimum security conditions, compared to titling a key to class object, minimum security conditions are so much different. There's such a wide gap between there. And I guess the reason for that being a thing is because over the years, as more and more research was done into it, more and more SCPs came to light or were discovered, and slowly, I guess, it built up the belief in them that if we stop researching this, no more SCPs will come. And now, depending on whether you look at it as a early warning system or the actual, like, progenitor, that word is used later on. I don't know how you pronounce it. Whether this is what brings in the SCPs, what brings them into being. And it's kind of cool to think about. Everything just went dark on the camera for some reason. I'm sorry. It's just cool to think about. And I'm sitting here fanboying within myself because it's just, that's the type of thought process that gets my brain working. Like how would you ever tell whether or not this is the early warning system or the creator? How would you ever tell? Because now you can't research it anymore. Because every time you go to look at it, try and research it, more things are found. So it is a large risk. You risk bringing in dozens, if not hundreds, of more SCPs over the course of your studies. And it's interesting. It's just really cool. We're gonna go back to the description we were looking at from earlier. Let's see here. A lot of redacted things here. So, the first appearance of this report was on Redacted, when it appeared on the desk of Redacted, who is deceased, apparently. The report at that time described the living room, which is SCP-002. Shortly after reading the report with incredulity, Redacted was contacted by phone regarding said item. The next time Redacted pursued SCP-0... I just said pursued. The next time Redacted perused SCP-001, it described not the living room, but biological motherboard, SCP-003. Redacted immediately closed SCP-001 thinking it was a different report and searched for the original report on SCP-002. Not finding it. That's a different sentence. Not finding it, he again opened SCP-001, and this time it described not SCP-003, but the 12 rusty keys and the door, which was SCP-04, or 004. Redacted closed the report once more and opened it immediately to read of the skeleton key, SCP-005. It is not known what the next actions of Redacted might have been. At varying times following this incident, the aforementioned items were discovered. So, this guy, he finds the sheaf of papers. It just appears on his desk. Just boom. It's there now. That might have been loud. I apologize. It's just on his desk now. He's dead at this point. I have no idea when this may have taken place. Not all that sure. It'll probably give me a little bit more. I'll probably get a little bit more context if I read to SCP-002, 003, and 004, and 005. If I read those, I'll probably eventually get a little bit more context or evidence as to when this could have taken place, who this redacted person could have been. But it's cool that he read the living room, or he read the report that was describing the living room, and just really soon after the fact, he was contacted by phone regarding said item. That's just terrifying. Like, what would run through your head at that point? Like, like, what runs through your head at that point? I don't know what would run through mine. Like, if I sat here and I read something that was that terrifying, because the living room is a pretty terrifying thought. That um, this is a like an apartment building, and a room of an apartment building that is living, that takes in lives to make itself more attractive, to attract more people to take their lives. That is a terribly interesting topic that I'm gonna love talking about SCP-002 in the future, because just that is terrifying. That is utterly terrifying to me. Just the thought that this thing is a living creature that is absorbing the life essence, I guess I'll use the word essence, of beings to make itself more attractive to others. I'm going off topic here though. I've not seen what biological motherboard is yet, nor have I looked at the 12 rusty keys in the door or skeleton key. I've not looked at any of those yet. I'm saving those. I want to be surprised whenever I look at them and do a video on them. But just from looking at them, biological motherboard, something scientifically related to technology is what I would assume. It's a living computer is my assumption. The 12 rusty keys in the door, 12 different dimensions locked within one door. That's an assumption. Skeleton key, well, it's a skeleton key. It's the key to everything in the universe. The key, it'll unlock everything in the universe. That's another assumption. But just, I love it when things do this, because just all of the redacted things here. You may not like the fact that a lot of this information is redacted, but I love it because it tells me that this information is, I get to piece things together eventually. Eventually, I want to come back, look at this, and I want to try and piece together when these things happened and maybe who they happened to or who was involved with it, because I'd love to figure out who this deceased person is here. I feel like that would be awesome. I mean, if you look at like the date that is redacted, you can see that it's got like individual spaces, like it's got individual spaces that you can probably fill in with letters. It's probably individual letters and numbers and everything like that redacted. It's not just bars, which I love, because then we get to see, like, if we take names from later on down the line, we can try and fill them in to fit the dot or to fit the blanks, and that's just cool to me. That's just really cool. Anyways, moving on. Let me move here. All right. On to a little bit more of the description. Alrighty. Insufficient research exists concerning the correlation between SCP-001 and all other known items. However, it has been established that every event regarding the discovery of a new SCP item has followed a report on that same item appearing beneath the cover sheet of SCP-001. The current administration regards this coincidence as proof of causal connection. Causal connection is cool because it's saying that because when new items are discovered, they also have appeared underneath the cover sheet. It's saying that because those both happen at relatively the same time, it proves that there is some type of causal connection between them, whether it's or not even just casual, just some type of connection between them. So I don't know how to properly describe that. I probably should have sat here for a little longer and just tried to think of the best way to describe that, but there's also still like a decent bit left of this. And I don't want to get bogged down here trying to describe how causal connection works. So what I will do is I will just do this. So it's an adjective. It is saying if there is a causal relationship between two things, one thing is responsible for causing the other thing. So that's what it's saying there. It's saying that because they both happen at the same time, either the SCP object coming into our world is the reason for this appearing on SCP-001, or because it appears on SCP-001, it causes something to come into the world. That's what it's saying there. All right, next, on to the additional notes. Alrighty. Whether SCP-001 is to be regarded as an advanced warning system, or whether SCP-001 itself is to be regarded as the creator of the items requiring special containment, remains to be seen. However, the distinction is unimportant in the eyes of the current administration. The fact remains, no new SCP items appear unless SCP-001 is opened and read. It is for this reason that the current administration refuses to repeat the mistakes of the past, mistakes that have resulted in that's a large number. Mistakes that have resulted in over 1,000 SCP items coming to the knowledge of the SCP unit. So, that's a lot of things. And it may not seem like a lot because there are billions of people on the Earth, but these are also all items that have come into this world because of people having read SCP-001. I intended to say a few things here, but I can't think of what I was going to try and say. Hopefully it'll come back to me here in a second, but I'm gonna come back here and I'm going to continue. I'll come back to this if I need to talk about it later. But moving on to more additional notes. So, arguments concerning the non-lethality of SCP-001 itself is its theoretically beneficial use as an What is that sentence? Arguments concerning the non-lethality of SCP-001 itself, its theoretically beneficial use as an SCP warning system, or its use as a progenitor of advanced biological and non-biological weapons have not swayed the current administration, nor have arguments criticizing the extreme containment procedures employed in respect to an item that displays no nefarious qualities and is not animate as such. Critics are reminded that these procedures are intended not to contain the item itself, but to isolate it from human interaction, which is to be regarded as the true threat. So like I mentioned earlier, the whole reason this is a Keter class object is not because of the dangerous properties of the paper itself, but rather the dangerous properties of the human mind. We as humans are curious creatures. We're like cats. Except curiosity didn't kill the cat in this case, it killed the humans. And it also brought thousands or hundreds, if not thousands, of SCPs into the universe, or into our world here. Which is, by the way, still just a lot of times that this book has been, or this sheaf of papers has been opened. Just a lot of times. But just the fact that it mentions that to use this as a progenitor of advanced biological and non-biological weapons have not swayed the current administration. The fact that they've thought of using this as a way to create or bring into the world advanced biological and non-biological weapons. We as humans think of nothing but trying to create weapons, ways to destroy things, don't we? We just have a morbid curiosity with trying to create those types of things, don't we? It's wild. But the thing here is, nothing has made them want to change their minds. they've stuck very hard with this is a dangerous SCP. This is a dangerous creature, dangerous item, actually, that does not need to be put out into the world, does not need to be put out there to be seen by people, because every time it is looked at, more dangerous things appear in the world. And that's not a good thing. That's very much not a good thing at all. And it's just super cool and super wild that this is fiction, but it's written so well. Like just this right here, I could imagine this being something in real life, something's happening right now, just because of the way the world works. I could see this being a thing, and that's what's cool. I think that's what makes me love this so much, is that all this stuff, because of so many supernatural things that happen throughout the world every year, you could believe this. You could believe in this type of thing. Now, some of the SCPs are a little bit wild, a little bit far-fetched, kind of out there, but there's a lot of them that are grounded in some sort of reality, whether it be the exact reality that we believe in or that we exist in. It's still a type of reality that is kind of believable or very believable in some cases. And this, in my opinion, is one of those that is kind of believable. There's only one more small little bit right here that I will discuss, or that I will read to you, and then I will discuss some, and then we'll just talk some more after that. And that is that although the current administration refuses to remove the object from isolation barring special authorization as noted above, past administrations have counseled daily with the item, and future administrations will no doubt counsel similar behavior. Nevertheless, it is the opinion of the current administration that barring the destruction of SCP-001, it is to be contained until such a time when responsibility for its containment falls upon future administrations. So what they're saying is, the current administration, want to take care of this and make sure that they are not to be related back to any of the things that have been done previously. They don't want to be the reason that so many SCPs, so many creatures and items have been brought into this world or have been discovered. They will leave that to fall upon the future administrations, the future generations of the Foundation. And it's just interesting because it says past administrations have counseled daily with the item. It's just wild to me that in the past, they were carefree enough or just irresponsible enough to do this so much that they've allowed over 1,000 SCPs to come into this world. It's just wild to me. Just that simple fact alone is just so interesting, because it goes to show that each generation of the Foundation, each different administration has dealt with things differently. And it makes you think, what could each generation or each administration have hidden or have covered up or have done other things to? And I believe that's the reason there are 41 different proposals for this. Yeah, 41. This was just one. This was one proposal. The next one I'm going to talk about will be codenamed Dr. Gears, the prototype. So, here's my takeaway from this whole thing. My takeaway is, I freaking love the SCP universe. And I want to do this a lot more often, because this is absolutely fun to do, and I really love these long format talking videos. But no, really though, it's just got to work to put my thoughts into intelligible words here, or intelligent words here, so that you can understand them, and I won't just be blabbering. So, even though mistakes from past administrations have led to the to thousands of or over 1,000 SCPs coming into the world, the current administration wants to try their best to avoid this type of thing happening. And they cannot guarantee if future administrations will continue this or if they will revert back to the ways the past administrations warped. And it is cool that this is a great way to explain how so many SCPs have come to being, because there's almost 7,000 now. There's a whole lot of SCPs now. There's almost 7,000. Just let that sink in, that as a collective, the community behind the SCP Foundation have come up with nearly 7,000 SCPs, and there's so many stories to go along with it as well. I've not read too terribly many. I've read a handful over the years of the stories. Some of them I didn't even realize they were stories relating to this until after the fact that I finished reading them and looked at them more. But it's just so cool. This whole universe, this whole idea, it's just super cool and very engaging. It very much relies on the community to further the story and give just give ideas to everyone. Cause it's like a think tank, or not a think tank, but it's like you're just throwing a crap ton of thoughts into a jar, and everyone's getting to pull those thoughts out and look at them and come up with their own and come up with things that other people may not have ever thought of. And it's so cool. I've said that so many times now, but it's just awesome how these things work and how everything comes back with each other. And I could sit here for another 10-15 minutes and just keep rambling on about this type of stuff. But it is. It's awesome. But on that note, I think you guys have probably listened to me talk enough, and you're probably a bit tired of my voice by now. So, on that note, I would just like to thank all of you for watching this far into the video if you have. And just special thanks to the people who have stuck around since the beginning. Or just, even if you come back and just watch this piece by piece. I still appreciate it. But, on that note, I believe it is a time to say adios.